So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time, around 20 to 25 minutes. Now, the purpose of this lecture series is quite simple. You see, current affairs forms a very important portion of your civil services examination, whether that's UPSC or state civil services examination. You cannot clear those exams without covering current affairs. And you need to cover current affairs on a daily basis because current affairs form a very important chunk. Around 40 to 50% of your questions in the exam, whether that's prelims or mains, are directly or indirectly related to current affairs. So you cannot ignore current affairs at all. And you have to cover them on a daily basis to get a good grasp on current affairs. But the problem is that you can't spend your entire day covering current affairs, reading the newspaper, right? That's not possible because you need time for other aspects of your civil services syllabus. Make sense? So, for your help to facilitate you guys, we have come out with this lecture series in which we'll cover the current affairs within 20 to 25 minutes. So, what you have to do is the following. You have to watch this lecture and finish this lecture in 20 to 25 minutes. Then, after watching this lecture, just after watching this lecture, you have to revise those current affairs. Now, where can you revise these current affairs featuring in our lecture? Well, you can revise these current affairs from our PDF file. Now, our PDF file for current affairs lectures would be posted on our Telegram channel. You can find our Telegram channel by clicking on the link given below this video in the comment section. Okay, so I will share the Telegram link in the comment section below every video. Just click on that link, you'll be taken to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the PDF file. So 20 to 25 minutes of watching this lecture and another 20 to 25 minutes revising this lecture. And within 40 to 50 minutes, you'll be done for the day as far as current affairs are concerned. Yeah, now you can spend your entire day as you wish, reading other parts of your syllabus, polity, geography, history, what you want to do. Okay? So this is the purpose of this lecture series. Make sure you make it a part of your daily routine because it will really help you out. All right. Today we are going to cover November 14th, 2024's current affairs, and the important news items or the important topics that featured in this day's newspaper are as following. So in total, we'll be covering 4 topics. Number 1 would be AFSPA back in Manipur. Recently, Ministry of Home Affairs, Union Ministry of Home Affairs came out with a notification that the areas that were free of AFSPA are no longer free of AFSPA because AFSPA is going to be enforced on those areas in Manipur again. Okay, so what is AFSPA and what is the history between AFSPA and Manipur? We'll talk about this. Then, birth anniversary of Birsa Munda, a very famous tribal leader who led a revolt against the British. Birsa Munda's birth anniversary is on 15th November. Okay, it's a very important day for tribals, and Government of India has also made it a point that Government of India makes it a very important day. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then recently, Supreme Court has ruled on mandatory accessibility standards. Okay, public spaces should be accessible to people with disabilities. Okay, there should be enough facilities for people with disabilities to access those public spaces. There should be ramps, there should be other things, right? So Supreme Court has said that these public spaces should be made accessible and it should be made mandatory, not recommendatory. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about early smog in North India. This time, smog in North India, especially parts of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP and Delhi, has come a little early. Though smog is an annual occurrence, it occurs always during the winters. But this time, it has come a little early. So what are the reasons behind this phenomena? We'll talk about this. Okay, so we'll focus our energies on these 4 topics. First topic is related to internal security, which is part of your GS3 syllabus. Second topic is related to society. Okay, Indian society, which is part of your GS1 syllabus. Third topic is related to people with disabilities. Again, that is part of Indian society and is also part of GS2 paper. So Indian society is part of GS1, but government steps, government policies are part of GS2. Okay, Indian judiciary is also part of GS2. So that would get covered. And this is part of environment, which is part of GS3. Okay, so these are the parts of your syllabus that would also get covered side by side the current affairs. Okay, all right. Let's begin this discussion starting with topic number 1, which is AFSPA back in Manipur. Now, what is AFSPA? Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Now, Armed Forces Special Powers Act gives special powers to the armed forces personnel, people in the army, people from the security forces. It gives special powers to these people to curb problematic law and order situation. Okay, the real name for those areas is disturbed areas. So to sustain or to prevail law and order situation in disturbed areas, AFSPA is enforced in these disturbed areas. Now, many parts of Manipur are under AFSPA, but these parts were not under AFSPA in the recent times. But because of the problematic law and order situation right now in Manipur, these areas have also become have also come under the rule of AFSPA. Now we'll understand what's so special about AFSPA, what sort of powers or special powers it gives to the security personnel. Okay, but first let's take a look at what was in the news. So center has reimposed the disturbed area status. Remember, whenever an area is called a disturbed area, AFSPA is enforced in that area. Okay, and this disturbed area status has been given to 6 police stations in Manipur Valley areas. Now you need to understand Manipur a little bit. Okay, now Manipur has two parts. Basically, the geography has two parts. One is hill areas, okay, and the other is valley areas or plain areas. Now, plain areas are generally populated by Meiteis, okay, and hill areas are generally populated by tribals like Kukis, Nagas, and other tribes. Now, AFSPA is there in certain hill areas, but it was taken away, or AFSPA or disturbed area status was taken away from certain valley areas. But now, because of the worsening law and order situation, that disturbed area status has been brought to 6 police stations of valley areas where the Meiteis reside. Okay, so AFSPA is back in these areas. These are those 6 areas: Kangpokopoi, Imphal East, Bishnupur, Jiribam, Imphal West, and Imphal. Okay. Now, Ministry of Home Affairs issued this notification. It cited that the law and order situation in Manipur is worsening day by day. Therefore, we need AFSPA. Now, what is so special about AFSPA? Okay, why is AFSPA enforced in disturbed areas, and how much or how many powers or what sort of powers it gives to the security personnel in curbing problematic law and order situation? So, AFSPA stands for Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Was enacted in 1958, and the purpose of enacting this act was in 1958 also was worsening law and order situation in northeast India. So this act was enacted for northeast India, but now this act is also enforced in certain areas of Jammu and Kashmir as well. Okay, so it was enacted in 1958, and this law gives immunity to armed forces personnel to take action in prevailing law and order in a disturbed area. Okay, so what sort of powers or what sort of immunity is given to armed forces personnel? So to basically prevail peace in a particular area, an armed forces personnel can shoot a person, that person can die, and the officer responsible or the Jawan responsible for the death of a person, I mean, if that person is involved in suspicious activities, well, that officer of the government won't be prosecuted. Okay, they can search without warrant, they can shoot to help law and order sustain in an area. So a lot of things which in peace times would not be allowed would be allowed in disturbed areas. Okay, and armed forces personnel can take certain actions and they won't be held liable for that. Okay, now which areas would feel the brunt of AFSPA? Okay, AFSPA would be enforced in which areas? When? Well, as soon as an area is declared disturbed area, well, AFSPA would be there. Okay, now what is a disturbed area? A disturbed area is the one that is declared by notification from the government under Section 3 of AFSPA. So under Section 3 of AFSPA, central government, that is generally Union Ministry of Home Affairs, or the governor of a state, or the administrator of a UT can declare a particular area, a district, a locality to be a disturbed area. And as soon as that area is declared a disturbed area, AFSPA is enforced. Now, Manipur has been facing a lot of problems, and the security situation is worsening day by day. That is why these 6 police stations or the area under these 6 police stations have been brought under the purview of AFSPA, or they have been declared disturbed area. Now, what is the history of AFSPA in Manipur? So AFSPA is in Manipur since 1980. Okay, and it was only withdrawn from some parts of Imphal, the capital of Manipur, in 2004, following some controversy regarding the killing of a 32-year-old man. Okay. Now, since 2022, some areas disturbed area status from some areas was removed. So AFSPA was basically removed from some areas. It was being incrementally reduced. 15 police stations in 6 districts were no longer under AFSPA. Okay. This went on till April 1st, 2023. But in May, the conflict between Meiteis and Kukis erupted and the situation worsened from there on. That is why disturbed area status has been put on these areas again. Okay, now they would be under AFSPA. Armed forces personnel such as Assam Rifles or CRPF Jawans would have certain special powers to curb the worsening law and order situation. Okay, I hope you understood what AFSPA is. All right, let's move on to next news item, which is about Birsa Munda. Now, who is Birsa Munda? In fact, certain tribals call him Bhagwan Birsa Munda because he started his own religion also, but he's a very tall leader among the tribes of Jharkhand, okay, especially Jharkhand and in many parts of central India as well. Now, Birsa Munda was born on 15th November 1875. So every year since 2021, 15th November is celebrated as Birsa Munda's birth anniversary, and it is marked as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. Now, Janjatiya means tribes, okay. Gaurav Divas means a day to feel proud of your ancestors. Okay. So since 2021, government has actually marked this day, the birth anniversary of Birsa Munda, as a day to feel proud of the contributions made by tribals to our country. Okay. In fact, President Draupadi Murmu on November 15th led a nation in paying tributes to tribal icon Birsa Munda on his birth anniversary. Birsa Munda is a very tall leader, and that is why his birth anniversary was chosen as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. This day would be celebrated to actually remember the contributions made by many tribals across our history. Okay, now this practice has been going on since 2021, and Birsa Munda was born on 15th November. So Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is celebrated on his birth anniversary. I hope you got that part. Now, who was Birsa Munda basically? What was his contribution? You see, Birsa Munda led a very famous revolt against the British. Okay, he's also known as Dharti Abba, that means father of the earth, and Birsa Munda is known because he mobilized the Munda tribals and the Oraon tribals against the British in the state of Jharkhand, which was then called Bengal Presidency. Okay, he actually collected and became the leader of one of the biggest tribal revolts in our country. This tribal revolt happened in 1899 to 1900, and it is known as the Munda Rebellion because it was chiefly led by the Munda tribals. It is also known as Ulgula. Ulgula in the tribal language means revolt. Okay. Now the aim of this revolt led by Birsa Munda was to drive out the British out of their areas, to drive out all the outsiders who had settled in their areas. That involved Indians as well. Now there were various Indians who worked for the British Empire, and they also settled in the Munda areas, right? Some moneylenders were also there. Many people were working there. Now in Munda language, these outsiders were called Dikus. Okay. So Munda Ulgulam was basically a revolt against Dikus and the Britishers or the Europeans who had settled in their areas and were exploiting them. Okay. The aim was to establish Munda Raj in their area. Plus, Mundas were also angry with the missionaries. Okay. These Christian missionaries were converting their people to Christianity, and Birsa Munda and many Mundas were against that. So to challenge the British religious conversion activities, Birsa Munda started his own religion also. It was called Birsayat, and it was joined by various Munda tribals and Orao tribals also. So these were his contributions. Okay. Now, how severe was the Munda Rebellion? Okay. Ulgula, as the movement came to be called, aimed at establishing Munda Raj by driving out the British. Now, the reasons for this uprising or the causes behind this revolt were following. First of all, the land policies of British, the land policies or the land revenue policies followed by the British were making these Mundas landless, and they were being evacuated from their own land. Okay. Plus, various landlords and money lenders were taking over their land. Plus, missionaries were also converting them to Christianity, uh, in a way persuading them to leave their ancient religious practices. Okay, so first of all, Birsa followers began targeting the symbols of Bhikkhus, these outsider moneylenders and all, and Europeans. They attacked police stations, churches, raided the property, and all that. This revolt went on for 2 years, but in 1900, Birsa Munda got arrested, he was jailed, and he died of cholera in the jail. Okay, and after that, the movement faded. But for 2 years, it really troubled the British. So that is why Birsa Munda is a tall tribal leader in that area. Okay, and that is why his birth anniversary is celebrated as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, or the day to feel proud of our tribals. Okay, all right. Now let's move on to our third news item, which is Supreme Court on mandatory accessibility standards. You see, people with disabilities also have rights. Okay, and the biggest right that they have is that the public spaces should be made accessible to them. For example, there is a government building and you need to climb to first floor of that government office or government building, but to go there you need to take the stairs. There is no ramp or lift facility. Now that would make a person on wheelchair very sad. Basically, he won't be able to access first floor of the government office because there is no facility available for him to climb to first floor of that building. Make sense? So in that way, the first floor of that building is inaccessible or unaccessible to that person on wheelchair. Similarly, there are other things also, right, which make these public spaces inaccessible to people with disabilities. Now that is a clear violation of their rights. Okay, that is a clear violation of their right as a citizen, right? Now, to make these public spaces accessible and to give rights to these people, Government of India enacted Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Okay, and under this Right of Persons with Disability Act, government framed certain rules, but those rules were not mandatory. I mean, government buildings and various other public buildings were told to make these spaces accessible to people with disabilities, but that was not mandatory. That was not made mandatory for them, right? They can choose to make these public spaces accessible. They can choose not to. It was not mandatory. So therefore, Supreme Court said that it should be made mandatory, because if you're not making public spaces mandatory for people with disabilities, then it's a clear violation of Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. So this recent judgment reaffirmed the accessibility part as a fundamental right of people with disabilities. Now, you need to know what Rights of Persons with Disability Act is all about. So it was enacted in 2016, and the reason for its enactment was that India had signed and ratified United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And to honor this ratification, India had to enact a law. Okay, so to fulfill its obligations under this United Nations Convention, India enacted Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Now, this act aims to ensure that all persons with disabilities can lead their lives with dignity, they have certain rights, they enjoy those rights, public spaces are made available to them, equal opportunities are made available to them, they are not discriminated against. Okay. Now, under this RPWD Act, rules were framed, okay, which set the standards for public spaces to make these spaces accessible. But these rules were recommendatory in nature. And that is why many public spaces remained inaccessible to people with disabilities. So Supreme Court basically took cognizance of this and said that these rules should be made mandatory. And if someone is not following these rules, well, there should be a penalty, a fine, or some penal action against that thing. Okay, so this is what the recent Supreme Court judgment is all about. Okay, now, this Supreme Court judgment was a result of a writ petition filed in 2005 by Rajiv Rathuri, who was a visually challenged person and who asked Supreme Court to tell the government of the day to make certain rules mandatory. Okay. So, Supreme Court gave this judgment. It said that government needs to frame mandatory rules, not recommendatory rules, and government needs to do that within 3 months of this judgment. Okay. So, in the next 3 months, government has to come out with mandatory rules. Recommendations won't do. All right. And our last news item, which is early smog in North India. Now you see, what is smog? Smoke plus fog, right? And it is quite deadly. Okay, it is not healthy for human beings to live in a smog like environment. It actually impedes your visibility, it affects traffic, and this air pollution causes a lot of damage to your respiratory system. But North Indians are used to this situation. North Indians are used to smog. Smog is an annual winter occurrence in northern India, especially in Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh. However, this year smog has come a little earlier, in early November. Generally, it comes in late November or December, but this time it has come in early November. Now, this has created a lot of problems. But basically, what we need to know is that what is smog and why is it an annual occurrence in northern India? Okay, so first let's talk about this. So, what is smog? Smog. So, smog, the word comes from the blend of smoke plus fog. It is a type of air pollution that creates a hazy, like as you can see over. During summers, India Gate looks like this. During winters, during smog months, India Gate looks like this. Okay, so it creates a foggy atmosphere, reduced visibility, and affecting air quality. Now, how is smog formed? Smog forms when pollutants such as nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, and many other pollutants are released into the atmosphere from factories, from cars, from power plants, and they mix with moisture in the air. So these pollutants get mixed with moisture in the air. So smoke plus moisture in the air creates smog. Okay. When combined with fog or high humidity, this reaction produces a thick haze, reducing visibility and posing a risk to public health. Now, why is smog a common occurrence during winters only? Why not summers? Okay. Because there are special weather conditions during the winters in North India. What are those special winter conditions? Temperature inversion. What is temperature inversion? Look, during winter months, the ground gets quite cold. Okay, so there is a layer of cold air close to the ground. Okay, so this is the ground, and there is a layer of cold air. Above this layer is a layer of hot air. Okay, now the problem with cold air is, or the advantage with hot air is, that hot air has a tendency to rise. Okay, so if had the layer of air closer to the ground been warm, it would have risen and dispersed all the pollutants. But during winters, the bottom layer is a cold layer. So all these pollutants gather in this bottom layer, and this cold air is unable to rise because the hot air above it actually doesn't allow it to rise. Okay, so cold air has a tendency to descend, so it stays close to the ground, and all these pollutants, due to vehicles, factory emissions, all these pollutants stay suspended in the air. They are not, because cold air doesn't rise, and that is why these pollutants do not get dispersed, and that is why you get smog like condition. Now, this phenomena is known as temperature inversion, and this happens to the North Indian states during winter months. So, this weather phenomena causes high air pollution during winter. Plus, there is another factor that causes smog, or basically increases the intensity of smog, and that factor is because of human intervention. Stubble burning, especially by farmers of Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, they actually they don't cause smog, but because of their actions, smog gets intensified because burning of stubble releases particulate matter, carbon monoxide, sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxides. Okay, plus there are other causes also, like vehicular emissions. There are a lot of vehicles now roaming around on the roads, industrial smoke, construction dust, and they all get suspended because of temperature inversion. All right, that's about it. That's all. Okay, and with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you for watching this lecture, guys. Now, please do not forget to revise this lecture. Okay, it's going to take another 20 to 25 minutes, but this revision will actually consolidate these current affairs in your memory for a long time. So you have watched this lecture, you have covered the current affairs for November 14th. Now, please do not forget to revise them also. It will take another 20 to 25 minutes. Just download our PDF from our Telegram channel, and you know where to find our Telegram channel. Click on the link below this video in the comment section. Okay. So on that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.